My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Hi, this is Stephen Shane McDonald.
I'm Jeffrey McDonald.
From Redd Kross.
And you're checking out Dave and Holly on What Difference Does It Make podcast.
All right. No regrets.
Hey, Holly.
Hey, Dave.
What's happening today? I don't know. What difference does it make? That sounds like a radio DJ. I can't do the Paul Stanley voice. I would love to do that.
Welcome to the What Difference Does It Make podcast.
All right, everybody, let's get ready to rock.
So should I explain why you're getting all rock and rolly?
I am all rock and rolly. Huh? Why is that? Why am I like this?
I feel like I should take over from here because you are just too excited to express how excited you are to have our guest today, the band Redd Kross.
Yeah, this was my band, the hometown boys for me, because I feel like I used to go see local shows a lot. And once I discovered Redd Kross, when they opened up for the Bengals, I was like, oh my God, this is the band I've been waiting for my whole life. And they're from LA. They play all the time. And they got this amazing look and they love Kiss. They're like me, except they know how to rock really hard. And I loved it.
It makes me so happy to hear your passion for them. We should say they're from Los Angeles, but they're from the South Bay. So they're from the beach cities, just a little bit south of LA, where there was a big punk scene. So they came up playing all the clubs in LA, like Madame Wong's and Hong Kong Cafe.
Yes, but you're failing to say how old they were at the time. They were babies. They were literally baby. I mean, 11-year-old bassist Steven and the guitarist Jeff was 15? How old? Like 4 years older than him?
I think so, yeah. So I think he was 15 or 16. Yeah, babies when they started playing.
Right.
And they were on the scene.
Yeah, so they were on early on. This was when I couldn't go to club shows or anything like that. But later in life, actually, when they started coming into their own, and as me as well, I guess, I recognized how wonderful this band is and just been following their career since Neurotica and then going back and, then learning the whole story. But they're telling the whole story now.
Yeah. We're talking to them because they have a book and a film coming out. The book is Now You're One of Us, The Incredible Story of Redd Kross, which the brothers wrote together with Dan Epstein. And then they have the film, which is making the rounds at the festivals right now. It hasn't been released yet, but we hear it will be. Born Innocent, the Redd Kross story. And it was directed by Andrew Reich.
Yeah, so we're very excited. And then there's also an album, like a new Redd Kross album. It's the Redd album. It's self-titled. And if you have not discovered Redd Kross, this is a great opportunity to learn all about them. 45 years ago, they played Pollywog Park in Manhattan Beach, opening up for Black Flag. And now we've got a book, a movie, a new record by the band Redd Kross. And we're going to get into a lot of that. Before we do, we talk about our social media. That wasn't a thing 45 years ago, but is now apparently mandatory.
It is mandatory for us. If you would like to see outtakes from our chat with the McDonald brothers, please check out our YouTube channel at What Difference Does It Make Podcast and on our social media at WDDIM Podcast. Are you ready to rock?
Love it. That's the energy we need. All right, let's get into it. It's Jeff and Steve of Redd Kross on the What Difference Does It Make Podcast.
Ready?
Yeah. Let's go. We're going to be one of them. Oh, hey.
Hello.
Oh, my God. This is so exciting. Is Stephen McDonald living the suburban life? Where are you?
I'm in Los Angeles and Hollywood.
Okay.
And so is Jeff. We live like 5 minutes drive from each other.
Was that the intent for you guys to live 5 minutes from each other?
No.
Well, maybe for me, because Jeff got settled before I. So, but maybe I've always stayed close to him. I'm not sure. But if I did, it was it was subconscious.
So there was no warning like, hey, Jeff, I'm moving. It's 5 minutes
No,
away
I
from
think
you.
I encouraged him because I knew there were some great deals on some great vintage apartments at the time, 1990.
It's warm out there.
Hopefully my air conditioning isn't, you don't hear it because it's blasting. It's crazy here right now. I'm getting the Sherman Oaks heat of 110 degrees. So it's really nice.
Right.
Yeah, it's lovely right now around this time of year. It's
Yeah, 112, I think, in Sherman Oaks.
Oh,
yesterday.
okay. Oh, well, thank you, Jeff. A little new breaking news where it's going up to 112.
But I will say, well, bringing it into geography a little bit, it's like it's fun. It is fascinating how dynamic the weather is in Los Angeles, where it can be 112 in Sherman Oaks and 85, in Hawthorne or something. That's very unique. It's funny, like I didn't even realize we were having a heat wave because we just been on tour in the States, and the rest of the country is like this all summer long, and so I didn't even notice when it got hot here because I was already acclimated to it from our tour, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, this is crazy." It wasn't until the other night that I stepped out and it was like 90 something at night that I in my house there's one room in the house to get everything in the house to a reasonable temperature. There's one room that becomes an ice box, which happens to be the one that I'm in. So I've been wearing like a jacket in this room, and then I walk outside at night. I was like, whoa, I got to take my jacket off. That's interesting. So, but anyway, that's the first time I even noticed it.
Yeah, well, and how does Red Cross travel this time now? I know you just finished your U.S. tour. I was at the Lodge Room. That was spectacular show. I loved it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to do a deep dive on your set list, sort of. Just kind of curious as to how you set it up now. But how are you traveling nowadays?
When we travel, we have a fleet of buses and cargo trucks, and we each have our own. And that's when we're not flying on private jets.
There was one time, when bands probably toured via Volkswagen bus, and then it was Ford Econoline van. Now it's Sprinter vans. They're taller.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Sprinter vans with there's a rental company that kind of has cornered the market for bands, and we've been using them. Yeah, we've done it all different ways. Our first tour was in a station wagon, in a 1979 Ford Country Squire station wagon with a U-Haul trailer.
And wood paneling. Faux
Wood
wood paneling on
paneling,
the side. Yeah.
Gotta have that.
Yeah,
We've done it in every different permutation you can imagine. In Europe, only on trains, and we've tried all different kinds.
well, that was part of the fun of reading Now You're One of Us, is just kind of, how you guys got from point A to point B, and then you got turned down from point B, and like, okay, let's go to point C, and, the car's breaking down. It's the get in the van type mentality, and you guys you were all in until you weren't.
Well, that was more like get into the station wagon
Right.
when our first tour, which was set up really insanely, and shows were canceled when we arrived. We didn't know we were supposed to call and confirm them. It was just ridiculous.
Just since we've been doing it so long, technology has changed the way you do it so much, and that we actually date back to the pre-cell phone era, which I think is a big, in terms of practical matters, is a game changer. Because what you used to always have to do, and also pre-GPS, you would roll into the city limits, and then the first thing you'd have to do is find a payphone, and then you would have to cross your fingers that someone would answer that the phone number you were given on this piece of paper that you carry around, that often was, rather than a book of information, was a book of lies. You would then hope that someone would answer the phone on the other end. And if they did, they could give you some decent instructions that would actually be helpful, that would guide you to the venue. And that was just for starters. Now, it's a cakewalk in comparison.
Sometimes you want to get romantic about, back in the old days, we did this, we did that. It's like, no, it was not romantic. I mean, do you guys romanticize that time at all?
No.
In a word, no.
Well, there are nothing that beyond the general stuff that we all talk about looking at each other in the face instead of staring at your phone all the time. I mean,
Yeah,
sure.
no, you're right. No, I have to take that back. I do notice that even now, it's more people are just on their phone. On the last tour, I think I had my phone and I was sitting in the back of the car. I wasn't very comfortable because I was sick. I just got over an illness, but I realized I had crossed the Rocky Mountains without ever looking at them
Oh,
once. Just because like staring at my phone the whole time, I was like, oh crap. Okay, so yeah, sometimes we do have to take stock and kind of disconnect so we can actually have real connections at times. But besides that, it's all good.
Okay, so how do you feel along those same lines when people attend your show, people recording some of the music?
Oh, I don't care. I don't care at all. I mean, it never hurt the Grateful Dead. It doesn't bother me because the Grateful Dead used to encourage people to record their shows, and they just, helped them tremendously. So I don't think it's going to hurt us.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the main thing back in the day was that people were worried about bootlegs, people pressing up bootlegs, which was the other thing I was going to say about the old way. I mean, vinyl's great, and I'm glad that people are valuing recorded music through collecting vinyl. But at the same time, I was so glad when the vinyl era had gone away because I hated the crackles and the pops and a vinyl that was being destroyed each time you were listening to it. So, whatever, like, once again, I don't want to down people that are into collecting it.
I used to like to record my favorite bands, like with a cassette machine, and just make my own private bootlegs. Those were fun. So I guess that's what people are doing with their phones, filming you. But, who knows if they ever watch it again. I assume that people don't ever watch that footage.
Or they put it up on social media and YouTube, and that's just like it's the new version of word of mouth, and it's faster, and I mean, I think that the sound quality is usually not is rough, but I think the people that are viewing those kinds of clips take that into account. They've grown accustomed to that, so it doesn't
the lo-fi aspect.
I don't feel misrepresented by it.
I don't understand some of these artists who flip out with people filming them. Who cares? I mean, really, who cares?
I mean, believe it or not, artists have egos. And I think that
Is that so?
I think that a lot of that stems from, like, when you're on stage and you're doing your thing, you're trying hard to make it as like at least what we do, some kind of big extravagant moment. And then as from the artist perspective, you perceive it in this like kind of way that's hard to describe. And then if you see it back on someone's little iPhone, it feels like, oh, that's what it was like.
Yeah,
Oh,
devastating.
yeah, it's hard on the ego.
We come from the time when we would do shows, and the agreement would be the people with photo passes could only shoot the first 3 songs because after that you're disgusting and sweaty. But like at this point,
That's why I never knew
none
that.
of that stuff is relevant anymore, unless you're gonna sit there and just be so obsessed with it. I think it's great that people are filmed because I mean, after 20 years, if you still have that little piece of history, it's great. You don't care so much that doesn't sound like up to par.
Yeah. Or I try to not care. I usually disengage from most of it because I do feel like I don't want to get into a controlling place about it because that's a recipe for insanity. And to Jeff's comment, I wake up disgusting. So, like 10 songs into the set is when we kind of really get warmed up and we're hot and sweaty and like
That's rock and
dripping,
roll.
and that's kind of like the part that I want people to, if anything, if I can't orchestrate my own sort of Lady Gaga filmed in like 5 HD cameras with high definition, audio, then I'd rather have people at least see it in its most visceral form, if anything, so I'm down for the sweaty.
Okay, so conversely, as you mentioned at the Lodge Room, it was 45 years ago that you played Hollywood Park. The Linda Lindas, because they were kids, they had their viral moment. They're starting to blow up. They're playing, they're opening up for the Rolling Stones. They're opening up for Green Day. Yeah. When I was hearing these things, I'm like, this should have happened to Redd Kross.
Well, I mean, to us, it was like a viral moment because after that, the idea of playing nightclubs in Hollywood and actually making records, that was as far-fetched as opening for the Rolling Stones for us at the time. So just the viral moments of those days were a little bit smaller, but they were huge deals.
A lot smaller.
Yeah.
It's a different scale, but I would say
Yeah.
I would say that we went punk viral.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Have you talked with the Lindas? Can you, I mean, because it's similar, like your stories are matching up a little bit here.
Yeah, we've known them for quite a while. And one of their dads, Martin, had a fanzine called Giant Robot that I was
Oh,
familiar with
yeah,
back
yeah,
in the
yeah.
90s. And those girls have really been sort of submerged in a bath of punk rock history and underground music. And so when they did their Amoeba, What's in Your Bag clip 2 years ago or whatever, we got name checked, and it's so cool and so sweet.
I have Redd Kross Neurotica, special 35th anniversary edition, signed by Jeff McDonald and Steve McDonald. So I'm very excited about that. It has demo tracks and exclusive stuff, so that's very exciting.
Extra stuff.
I love the energy of it. I like bass is cool. I mean, all the parts are cool, but I aspired to.
She's a bass player, if you didn't know that.
In fact, one of them even, because Jeff and I, one of the long-going debates in our band is our decision to have two D's on the word red in our
And a
name.
K.
Yeah, and like I like a crazy person always hold on to that as like a frustrating bone of contention. And one of the girls, Eloise, said that she thought that the two in her "What's in My Bag" thing, she said that she thought the two D's was just really cool. Jeff made a point in like 2023 of saying, "Look at this. She thinks it's cool."
Well, I mean, you have to listen to a fan. That's what I relate to those girls on that level. They're super hyper rock and roll fans, and that's what we have in common. I mean, still after all these years, and when we started, we were even probably younger than they are now. We were fans, but we never lost it. So it's. I mean, I think it would be absolutely horrible to be in a band and to do the things that we do if you weren't a fan. Like you just did it because it was like your job and you were disconnected from it. I think it would be like worse than laying asphalt on a highway in the summertime.
I wish we could control for that, do a study on that and figure that out scientifically. If it is worse, I don't know how we would control.
Well, think about bands that get back together for their oldies tour or something, and maybe they've all moved on and they're not really into it anymore, but they were given an offer they couldn't refuse.
Like the band Oasis. Like, let's say that.
Yeah, well, I can't speak for those guys. Who knows what's going through their mind? But it's just maybe a group more like the Fix or Thompson Twins or not quite Oasis.
I couldn't think of a funny punchline, but somehow we could work dynamic pricing into that and making it much more appealing to Oasis. But I don't know.
Okay, so how do you feel about dynamic pricing?
Well, actually, I did have some thoughts on dynamic.
Here we go. Okay.
Please do tell.
Welcome.
So I would like to hear others' opinions.
Well, I've always been mesmerized as of recent, since post-pandemic, going to some big like stadium shows. Jeff and I went to see the big K-pop band Blackpink at the big soccer stadium downtown. Jeff has been a fan of K-pop for like well over a decade now. So once again, a maverick trailblazer ahead of the curve on that. And I just thought, okay, crazy middle-aged man into this into these K-pop bands. And it turns out once again he was right. There is something interesting there for everyone. But at any rate, we went to go see Blackpink, and I was mesmerized at the ticket pricing, and that it was like $2,000 because on Ticketmaster they host resale, like I guess as an attempt to get rid of scalpers in the parking lot or something. But they're hosting resale tickets, and they were like the average ticket cost about $2,000 to sit in the nosebleeds for a 40,000 seat stadium. It was mind blowing to me, and I knew this from doing the resale process for Ticketmaster myself that Ticketmaster got a commission if I sold my tickets.
Yeah.
But then I thought, okay, that $100 ticket is now getting sold for $2,000. Who does the artist get any of that markup? I don't know if they, I don't think they do. And so, and it just seemed like that's crazy. And then now this dynamic ticket pricing seems like it's taking into account that people are willing to pay these absorbent amount of, like, that's just a fact, which I don't know how sustainable that is anyways. I've always suspected that maybe that was a post-pandemic, people got credit cards and started charging concert tickets like it was their last concert ever or something, and that pretty soon they were going to be in hock for going to a Blackpink concert. But it also seemed like, well, maybe there's something about this thing that maybe it's not such a bad idea that people are willing to pay this. Maybe the band should at least share in that ridiculous amount of money that people are willing to spend. But then I thought, well, maybe it's the resale issue. Like maybe Ticketmaster shouldn't be hosting the resale, and we should just go back to the scalper person in the parking lot.
That's the monopoly. That's the monopoly that they have. So that's the big debate. They commission every sale. So one ticket can probably go through 3 or 4 sales, and they're getting commission every single time it sells. Right. And they're not sharing the money with the band, but I hear they share it with sports venues and the sports teams, but they haven't done it yet for the pop music.
I think from what I've read, it's the artist does get a chunk of the funds, and Ticketmaster is willing to be the bad guy in the situation. Like, yeah, we'll take these surcharges that we don't know about. The artist gets a little chunk of it. I don't know how much.
Dynamic pricing. That's not the resale. The resale on Ticketmaster, I've sold tickets on Ticketmaster. You set your own price for them. So I can't imagine that the artist is making money on the resale tickets, because that money's going to the person who's selling the tickets.
Right. And are they commissioning like a percentage of your final price? Say you get $1,000 for $100 ticket. Do they get a percentage piece of that, or is it just
I don't think
flat?
I think they're
it's
getting
definitely not a flat fee. Well, I'm sure it's a percentage that Ticketmaster gets. I'm sure they get a percentage that it's like escalates with the sale.
It's in their best interest to sell out Taylor Swift at face value in 5 seconds, and then all those tickets sell multiple times over and over again. They make, it's just incredible.
So the Oasis thing, from what I've been reading, is that people were putting tickets in their shopping cart for $200, $150, but when they got to the cart, when they got to pay, the ticket price had gone up to like $2,000.
Because so many of the tickets were gone, and they're saying, "Oh, this is the market value now." 5 minutes later.
Oh, you mean like the stock exchange?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
We are talking with Jeff and Steve McDonald from the band Redd Kross, but we've reached the point in our podcast where we take a break. It's time for some Redd Krossing, so we're stopping right now and wait for the green light. We'll be right back.
Hey there, busy parents. Christian Swain here, the rock and roll archaeologist. I know just how stressful family dinners can be, from planning and shopping to actually getting everyone to enjoy what you made. But I've got some good news for you. HelloFresh totally gets it too. They're making dinner easier and more enjoyable with fresh ingredients and recipes that even picky eaters love, delivered right to your door each week. I've been using HelloFresh for a while now, and let me tell you, their new Build-A-Plate meals are a game changer. Imagine not having to make multiple dinners to satisfy everyone's tastes. And with so many options, each member of my family gets to build their perfect plate from just one meal. No more, I don't want this at the dinner table. Just happy faces and clean plates. Plus, with HelloFresh, I don't have to worry about meal planning or grocery store runs. Their easy-to-follow recipes with pre-portioned ingredients save me so much time, especially now that school's back in session. And here's the best part. Right now, kids eat free. Go to HelloFresh.com/PantheonKids to unlock this exclusive offer. That's one free kids meal per box for 2 months while your subscription is active. So, what are you waiting for? Head to HelloFresh.com/PantheonKids. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Have you ever thought about something new you'd love to learn? As adults, it's easy to get caught up in the daily grind, and sometimes we forget to make time for new experiences. Remember when we were kids and learning was part of everyday life? Now it feels like we're always in work mode. But what if we could tap into that curiosity again? Whether it's learning how to garden, picking up a new language, or finally beating your friend in your fantasy football league, there's so much out there to explore. Therapy can help you reconnect with that childlike sense of wonder. I know for me, therapy has been a great way to learn about myself, set healthy boundaries, and develop positive habits. It's not just for times of crisis. It's about growing and becoming the best version of yourself. I know I am more in tune with both my positive self, which I highlight, and my negative self, which I'm working to minimize since I began working with my BetterHelp therapist. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, BetterHelp is a great option. It's fully online, so it's convenient, and it fits around your schedule. You'll fill out a quick questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist. And if it's not the right fit, you can switch at any time with no extra charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Pantheon today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/Pantheon.
We're back on the What Difference Does It Make podcast with our guests, Jeff and Steve McDonald of Redd Kross.
I've been going to large shows, like pop shows. I haven't been to a metal show in a long time, but any kind of large, bombastic show I've always been down for. That's the best place to see those kind of groups. People who put on these huge theatrical shows with bombs and, special effects. And Lady Gaga is not much different than like the Alice Cooper or Kiss shows that I went to as a kid. And it's the same thing. Same thing with Blackpink. It's like seeing a cross between the Supremes and Kiss. So it totally makes sense.
That's that makes sense.
We should probably maybe mention that Jeff was very supportive of his daughter Astrid's taste in music. So he would take her to Jonas Brothers concerts and Miley Cyrus back in the aughts, I suppose. And, he got into it right along with her rather than
they
being
were great shows. I mean, those were really, the Miley Cyrus Best of Both Worlds tour was incredible. Miley Cyrus with the Jonas Brothers opening. And this is how surreal that show was. Okay, so she made a double album called Best of Both Worlds. One of the discs was Miley Cyrus. She was the artist Miley Cyrus. And then the other disc was as Hannah Montana, the blonde wig. Yeah. So when she did the performance, the stadium, the arena performance, the first part was as Hannah Montana, and then she morphed into herself, and then did the second. So that's the kind of thing I would like to do.
Yeah,
right?
That's like okay. If I could pull a Jeff McDonald quote, that's like Debbie Gibson meets Sgt. Pepper's.
But you know what it really reminded me of? I remember I saw David Bowie and 9 Inch Nails play together at the Forum. And 9 Inch Nails were opening for David Bowie, but since they were the hot up-and-coming group, the word on the street was like everyone's walking out on Bowie, which they did. But that show was great because 9 Inch Nails played, and then Bowie came out and played with them, and then their stage set was kind of slowly changing. And then all of a sudden 9 Inch Nails were gone and it was just David Bowie. So that was very much like the Miley Cyrus Best of Both Worlds tour. It was like a mutation.
So did she go from being Hannah Montana to Miley Cyrus, or she went from being in the Jonas Brothers to being solo?
No, she went from being Hannah Montana to Miley Cyrus.
Okay, so that's
really high concept. It's high.
That's even better. That's even better than what Bowie did. Because what Bowie should have did is he should have came out as Ziggy Stardust and then morphed into David Bowie.
And then into Miley Cyrus. Another thing about that Miley Cyrus, so she was 14 at the time, and she played several nights at the Staples Center. And I just remember one night reading that I think she was ill the night we saw her, and she had been throwing up in buckets in between songs. And that's very much a classic rock and roll scenario. Yeah. That's like Ginger Baker being so strung out, throwing up in buckets during drum solos. It's like rock and roll has many faces.
Are you speculating that she was strung out on heroin?
No, but it's like the show must go on as we know.
She's a pro. She's a total pro.
Okay. So I'm trying to think of how the Redd Kross jukebox musical that's going to come out. We have Neil Diamond, we've got ABBA, Redd Kross, they start with their punk roots, then go to the Partridge Family, and then go, like it would be like all over the place. I would get, just kind of whiplash on your musical styles.
Well, the thing about the jukebox musicals, though, that if we did one that was our history, that would really be fun. I think there is some, the Heart of Rock and Roll, the Huey Lewis jukebox musical. I think that ran for 1 week. So we would have to choose which direction we were going to go. We were going to use an original story, or we were going to tell our tale.
Well, I think for starters, we'd have to also accept the fact that it would be an off-Broadway musical.
It'd have to be Broadway.
Oh, you're already putting your foot down. That's it. It's Broadway or nothing.
Yeah, well, I mean, Hedwig started off Broadway. I think we'd have to follow the Hedwig pattern and start off Broadway. And if it did better than the Huey Lewis musical, then maybe we would inch our way uptown. You never know.
I think your story's enough of a. You don't have to come up with any story for your story. Your story is perfect and entertaining.
And insane. And
you want to be a producer on this?
Yeah, right.
This is the second interview we did today, and this is the second time someone has mentioned Broadway shows to us.
Amazing. Yeah. See? Oh,
Hey.
Damn it. I thought I had an original idea. Of course, nothing's original.
Well, no, it wasn't an original idea. It's an obvious. Maybe it's an obvious next step.
So there is this book. We've got the book. We've got the movie. We've got the Redd album. It's the year of the Redd, I guess. Is that what we're calling this, or
the year of Redd Kross.
the year of the REDD?
2 Ds and a K.
Was it all planned? Like in 2024, we're just going to have this explosion of material that's going to come out, and we're going to get the story out. You're going to learn all about us, whether you like it or not.
You mean, was there like a mastermind plan?
Yes. Was there a mastermind plan? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we hired a series of focus groups and then to find out when would be the right time to drop the year of. No, part of it was by design, but so much of it's out of your hands. And the film is definitely, I always like to say to anybody that has a problem with the fact that a lot of things had been omitted. I mean, but it's a 45-year history. You can't expect to put every detail in a 90-minute documentary, but I always say it's not our movie. Andrew Reich, the documentarian, it was definitely his version of our story. We didn't even have final cut approval, which is intimidating at first to let go of how you're being perceived. But then I realized at some point it's probably best to not have too much control over that, because you might end up with something as false as, say, the Gene Simmons family reality TV show that was as scripted as any episode of 90210 or whatever.
Yeah, lost it, but maybe it could have turned into Purple Rain too.
I don't know. That sounds brilliant. That is.
So how did that come about?
Through friends of friends, Andrew was interested in our story. I guess the sort of creative spark moment for Andrew was listening to me on a podcast with Damian Abraham that turned out a punk podcast. I think me telling the story of my childhood, essentially abduction, and I think that made him think, oh, this is different than your average punk rock documentary. He supposedly had told his wife, someone really should make that documentary. And then she said, well, it seems like maybe you should do it.
Yeah, right.
We had friends in common, and he pursued it. And we slowly came to this idea that seemed like not a bad idea. I mean, he spent like 8 years working on it. So back to the question about orchestrating the 2024. I mean, we had no idea when he was going to finish this movie, and then the pandemic happened, and that put a big pin in it along with a lot of things for everyone. And then sometime around 22, he was telling me he was going to have the movie finished for 23, and I knew we couldn't have a record yet by then. I was like, please wait. And it really put a fire under me to inspire Jeff and I to get into the studio, which we managed to do all that and get a record out before he got his film properly distributed. Because as of now, it's really only have been at festivals, so it's been very limited. It's been doing the festival circuit. But I guess before 2024 is over, it will receive some kind of proper release.
The perfect Christmas
and then
film.
there was the book, which was the companion piece.
There's the book, which is a companion piece to all of them. And for people that feel like the movie doesn't go in deep enough detail, the people that are interested in the surgical version of our story can dig into that with the book. And that, once again, came about. Someone solicited it to us through Facebook. And I originally thought that it was going to be for 2025. And I was like, great, yeah, we can spread this out. And then the publisher, Omnibus, got excited about doing it when they knew we had a new album coming out. And then, which is all great. And I'm very excited now. But about 3 months ago, I was losing my mind when all of the deadlines hit at the same time. And we were trying to clear like 40 photos at the same time as trying to make videos for the new album and get ready to go on tour. Yeah, it's weird to go from being like somewhat inactive to suddenly like going into
hyperactive.
Yeah, hyperactive.
Extreme manic hyperactive.
Yeah, it seems panic-inducing. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
it's fun. I guess, Stephen and I both operate best under pressure, I think. I think that's one thing we do have in common.
I guess. I mean, I don't know how much we've been tested about that. I mean, like, I also, like, recently I've been doing some promo stuff for our European tour. I've decided to make a little vlog on my Instagram account, and I've been, like, basically internet groveling.
Yeah.
Trying to excite people about, in territories where we haven't done headlining shows in decades. And in some places, we don't need to worry about it. We just somehow the legacy has grown. And in other places, I think we probably really need to give people our undivided attention.
I personally like to work under pressure. I'm always like, when I hit the deadline, that's when I kind of can come up with some of the most interesting stuff. But it's also at the expense of my, nervous system. Stephen's basically saying that you like to be more prepared.
Well, no, this is the thing I was going to say about us working best under pressure. So then I was promoting the Manchester show, and I was throwing it out there like, oh, we're a brother team, like that other famous brother team from your town. And then I had this like little note of superiority, and I was like, but we've managed to keep the band together, and feeling like, oh yeah, we really know how to do this. And it worked out. And then a week later, they announced that they were getting back together and essentially blowing us out of the water. But the thing, or at least I kind of felt that way.
It was all because of your doing that the Oasis is together. Thank you, Stephen.
Like that asshole, Stephen.
Yeah, we'll show that guy.
Well, but the thing I thought about it, though, because not only was that a little, sort of faux humbling, I thought, this idea that we know how to do it, it's like we haven't been tested at the level of these bands that have become hugely successful and have a shared responsibility. I mean, yeah, we survived those deadlines a few months ago, but I could only imagine what it's like to experience the pressure cooker.
On a relentless level.
Yeah, like having hundreds of people's livelihoods depend on you, and having to come up with the goods on some kind of schedule that eventually throws you out into like arena and stadium gigs. And I know that I haven't been tested on that level, so I couldn't really say what the secret is to working under pressure, or how you keep a band together, much less one that has siblings in it, etc.
Well, you're working your way up to it, right? The arena tour and the bigger crew and everything can kick in now.
Well, I mean, sometimes I feel foolish that it's like, yeah, I am still.
Right.
It's somewhat of like a Don Quixote thing, I guess. But at the same time, it's like, I love the way things have turned out. And we both have great families and good lives. But at the same time, we grew up loving music that was part of popular culture, that had some kind of appeal, that universal and massive. It's true that we've kind of maybe always been ahead of the curve, and in that way, the timing hasn't been right. And there's really no example of a band in their 50s breaking into the mainstream. But at the same time, or 60s even, but at the same time, it's like, I'm open to it. I strive for not to do something that isn't me in order to appeal to an audience. I still, when I write a song, I'm always trying to I think of songs that like hit me in the gut because there was something universal and honest about it. And I think these are the qualities. It's about communicating. And I don't want to just like be the crazy person screaming into the wind. I'm hoping that it lands on ears that relate to it and that my transmission is received. I guess the end game of that is to communicate with as many people as possible. I think that the fear of failure would maybe stop some old cult rockers from ever admitting that they would love to land and to meet that kind of wide acceptance. I'm open to it. That's all I can say. But at the same time, the old expression of like be careful of what you wish for because you might just get it. I'm very aware that if you actually do get that, I mean, look what happened to most of the lead singers of our graduating class. All the grunge lead singers are dead. They were way too young, and their value system at the time, for whatever reason, just was not prepared for that kind of crazy experience that I can't relate to. I mean, Jeff, talking about Hannah Montana at 14, doing this Debbie Gibson meets Sgt. Pepper performance and then puking in a bucket in between not just costume changes, persona changes. I mean, I don't know what kind of human being can handle that. I know that I get challenged just by taking on the responsibilities at the level that we do it. So, I mean, it's tricky business, I guess, is what I'm trying to say at the end of all of it.
Maybe you've been pacing it well, so maybe this is it.
You never know. Maybe
Well,
so.
we live in unprecedented times. Anything can happen.
Yeah, and I think your band you play with, Stevens, Sparks, is kind of in that same trajectory. They're, slowly but surely, they're playing bigger and bigger venues. We saw them at the Walt Disney Concert Hall. I think they would be very open to their big hits, to getting their time. They got their film. You got your film now.
They're a perfect model for that. And, I have, I'm no stranger to Sparks. I played bass for them from 2004 to 2009. And yeah, it's funny because I had a front row seat to watch them striving during that era. And they've always been striving and accepting in equal measure, and they do it with grace. And at the time, I used to watch them and think they were a little bit crazy, I suppose, because it's really easy to sort of see it through a sort of a cynical industry lens, where it's like, what are you trying to do? Just be happy with what you have and just keep it going. And they're like always trying to prove something. The first time I saw them was like sort of probably a lull in the arc of their career. I saw them at the Key Club in 2004. Mm-hmm. And the last time I saw them with Jeff and our producer, Josh Klinghoffer, at the Hollywood Bowl last year. And yeah, I mean, how they define success is maybe different than maybe they would have defined it earlier. I think now for them, a goal is to like work with great European filmmakers and stuff, do things that are more like almost like not necessarily top of the pops kind of thing. But I mean, whatever, like they're just always looking for something that they're always trying to scratch that itch, and it's a creative itch. And whatever, we're in the show business, so the creative part intersects with commerce, and how you navigate all that is complicated. And I think they're a great example of people that have managed to buck the system and stay on course. And even when others could watch from the sidelines and think that they were perhaps not acknowledging obvious cues from the universe that was discouraging. And it's like, no, they're just single-minded visionaries that are not easily, they don't get ruffled by the little things. And, that's been a big lesson for me, to figure out how to filter out the messages you're given from the outside world. Because it's hard to know. You kind of live in a bubble making your own music, and you're making it for yourself, but you're hoping that there's going to be some kind of reaction to it, but you never really know. And so, I'm sorry, once again, I'm landing on it. So it's tricky business.
No,
Well, and plus, it's very healthy to always have to have something to prove. It kind of keeps you moving forward. As long as you don't become too obsessed and then it becomes unhealthy.
Sure. I mean, I think that that's part of the trickiness, though. It's like I think that no one can ever avoid that. You're always going, the battle to be, I guess, relevant is the word, which can seem like a really dirty word from our perspective. But I mean, like, because at times I get frustrated, like, oh my God, I still have to like prove this. But then I think that's a never-ending thing that is probably you can map that onto not just show business. We're all trying to be valued by others in some way or another. It's not a stable thing. It's always kind of in jeopardy.
It is true in life, especially when you get to this age, you feel like you want your material to be well received by others, yet you want to be true to yourself. And so maybe it is a little bit more head gamey with artists.
Also,
Artists are always in a complete state of head gaminess anyway. So it's kind of just about learning to live with that.
The only thing that's different with artists is that we're making something that hopefully is exposing something of who we are as people, or how we see ourselves, or how we see things, or whatever, making some sort of statement. And that can create as an extra layer of vulnerability as the outside world is deciding whether or not to value it.
Well, for what it's worth, the Redd album, your latest project, I was so thrilled to listen to this and just and hear this is where Redd Kross is. It rocks, and amazing moments in there. Lyrically, it's kind of fun, and it's what I love about Redd Kross. So it's an album I've gone back to. And I was really happy to hear it. And you're playing like, as I'm looking, like 4 songs on the set list now. You're trying, which is great. I mean, that's
trying to add more.
Right. Well, that shows how confident you are. Like, okay, we're going to play 4. We're not just going to play one, the beer song where everyone goes to get a beer, and then we'll play stuff from Neurotica or whatever.
Fortunately, that wasn't the case this time around.
Yeah.
People like the new record. And 4 songs. That was a nice little, like a new song every few numbers. But that would be kind of fun to have a couple of more to choose from. We just, like Stephen was talking earlier about our insane schedule to get everything together. We didn't even have time to learn our own songs for our tour. I mean, it was just kind of like, well, we wrote them, we recorded them.
We should know this.
You have to kind of go back and learn how to do it again. So we didn't even have much time, but yeah. We're very stoked that the audiences have. That's really rare. I mean, even Led Zeppelin. I heard John Paul Jones say, someone asked him like, "What was it like when you first played Stairway to Heaven on stage?" And he said, "Oh no, everyone just wanted to hear a whole lot of love."
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, I know, I get that. It doesn't matter who you are. Everyone goes through that. But this time around, people have been really receptive, and that's been really inspirational, I think, to both of us.
Do you find now with the shows you're playing now and with this material, are people bringing, because we all take our kids to shows now, right? I know our kids take us to shows too, but we take our kids to shows. Are you finding kids coming, the next generation coming to see you with their parents?
Yeah, that is always so great to meet, like, parents, like a dad with his son, or there's just as many like parents bring daughters as well, and that's always really cool, because if the kid really liked it, if you meet them after the show and you could tell they were really into it, then it's like, oh, I can't even think of a better feeling than that. Because we have kids, and it's a thrill, like when you get their approval on it for anything. It's easy to like realize when you're meeting someone and their kid, and the kid likes your music. It's like, wow, it's a big deal.
Do your own kids, did they get your place in history, and do they like the music, genuinely like the music?
Yes, I think. Well, yeah, I think so. Alfie's younger than Astrid, but Astrid's been in the game several more years, and she totally right there, and digs the legacy of us and her mom's band. But Alfie seems like he's coming around, like he's kind of starting to dig it a little bit more too.
Yeah, Alfie's my 15-year-old son. And
Yeah.
Astrid's Jeff's 29-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
Youngster.
Alfie's a little withholding, when we got like a, it seemed like a good review in Pitchfork, I sent it to him. What do you think?
Oh, so that's the deep dive research that you're doing?
Are we using our children as our own private focus groups?
Yes, exactly. Is that what you're doing now?
Oh, I would never.
No.
No, because they're into, both Astrid and Alfie are into some weird stuff that has nothing to do with Red Cross.
Some
So,
weird?
I mean, I don't, who knows if we can trust either one of their opinions.
What is too weird for Red Cross?
I
Well,
don't know.
we haven't done not weird, but we haven't done a foray into hip hop yet. But I mean, I just would never want to put the pressure on them to validate me. I mean, although I did send Alfie our Pitchfork review, but it's only because I knew that he was checking with Pitchfork for some of the stuff that he was liking. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. I think that I'm just glad if he's not embarrassed.
They should at least go through a period where they think that their parents are lame.
Sure.
That
Are the most
that's
cringy
definitely-
people on earth. Well, that was
Yeah, I
humbling
mean-
for me because I remember thinking when he started in middle school that I was going to be able to avoid that my dad is embarrassing thing because I had been in a punk rock band at that age and I thought I got some kind of free pass. And he had to explain, you get no free pass. No one does.
When you sent him the Pitchfork review, did he give you anything but a grunt?
He gave me cool.
I love
Yeah,
that.
I get that.
Yeah. It's the classic response.
Yeah. Thumbs up, Dad. Well, yeah.
no,
Good
it's
job.
exactly what
Yeah.
it- And I did look to him for a little bit of validation, and it was the wrong thing to do. And he gave it back to me exactly as he should have.
Well, cool means that's cool, though. I would believe that would be sincere, even if it was low energy.
Well, it wasn't bad. It just was he was not going to elaborate on it. He wasn't going to become my newest fan. Nothing. He was going to say pat me on the back and go good job, Dad. And
Sometimes
then,
cool is just an acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about what's the status of the Z Malibu kids? What's going on? Anything speaking of kids?
The Malibu kids are on ice, but I'm always willing to kind of, do the new version. I think we can add. I have a son-in-law now who's a great musician, and Alfie is now coming, into his own. Charlotte's always wanted to be a part of it. So I don't know. I would love to do something, but we'll have to just wait and see.
Here's the businessman of our partnership stepping in.
I'm the person in all of our families that has always been pushing for family bands because I'm a big Partridge Family, big Cowsills fan, and I always wanted to be in a family band. And I've said this to my, I said, oh, so start a family band. And to my daughter, she's like, oh, no. And I'll mention it to Alfie, and no. And I'd always say it to Anna and her sisters, why don't you guys have a family band? No. So then no one is open to this. But I think with the Malibu kids, it can accidentally happen.
Accidentally.
But don't misinterpret what I said as I'm not into it, because I am into it.
Oh, I know
would
you're
love it.
into it. I know you're into
I mean,
it.
It's my fantasy to
Anna's
bring
right.
our whole crew out on the road with us. It hasn't been practical. And then yes, there is the matter of getting willing participants to join, because we're not going to pull a Joe Jackson or whatever the famous stage parent stories.
But you would order the Partridge Family bus to tour around in, wouldn't they?
That would be terrific.
Right, exactly.
Right. We would just have to get a super pimped out Sprinter van version of it. All I remember about school buses when I was a kid is that they smelled like gasoline and they were bumpy rides. So I don't think I want to go on the road in a school bus.
The further you get into parenthood, is it the more admiration you get for your parents, for your own parents? Like, what the hell did they go through? And oh my God, we had no idea. And now you're kind of understanding a little bit of this?
Oh, yeah. I'm not as critical of my parents as I might have been at one time. Yeah, it's I do think of oh my God, we put them through, just an immense amount of terror, nightmares. And as a parent, I instantly can all of a sudden acknowledge it. Fortunately, my daughter is really well behaved, and so far, so good. She's well into adulthood, and she's still well behaved. But we weren't. But I took it for granted that they, what they went through with us, and now I don't. No, that's one thing about having a kid. I now completely respect and understand.
It's very humbling and I'm very grateful for it. Jeff and our parents are very much with us still and are our children get to benefit from knowing their grandparents. And luckily, we've been able to present them with the grandchildren that we were not as children.
Two very well behaved.
Of course, grandparents are way more accepting. So even if they were you, the grandchildren version of you, they would be way more accepting.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. That's already kind of baked into just the natural order of things. And we were always polite kids. We weren't like rude. We just were had an insatiable desire to do dangerous things. Yeah, we were thrill seekers to the nth degree, which is a double-edged sword because it's one of the reasons we're here talking to you now. But as
small miracle.
But looking back from the perspective now as a parent, it just seems like it must have been a complete nightmare. And when I think about how anxious they were at times, and when I was in my 20s and I thought I knew it all, I really judged them. I wouldn't say I might, I would say I did. And now I'm like, no. They really did a pretty outstanding job, all things considered.
Speaking of thrill seekers, does anybody remember the TV show Thrill Seekers hosted by Chuck Connors?
Oh, the rifleman. I don't remember that though.
Thrill Seekers was about real people who make real. The one thing I remember from that show is there was a guy who nailed in a coffin with a stick of dynamite. And the thing was like, so he blew the coffin up.
Like a Looney Tunes cartoon?
Yes. So I don't know. I just flashed on that when we mentioned Thrill Seekers.
Yeah. Well, we didn't put our parents quite through the coffin test.
No.
The dynamite in a crate or whatever it was.
I don't know. I would say your abduction story, I would say that was the equivalent as a parent.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is a thrill. Steve was a thrill seeker. Sort of, without even...
But you don't know any. I mean, you were how old were you?
I was like 12 and 13. 13 during the actual sort of kidnapping / running away, whatever you want to call it. But so they had to stomach that, and I was gone for 3 months, and it's something that had changed our family dynamic forever, and our parents, and in some ways that are just horrible. And that's the insane thing about the documentary that that the filmmaker documented our parents talking on the topic, which we never really do. It just doesn't come up naturally. And it's a very visceral topic for them still, which is proof positive that not only was it crazy and horrific, is that also that they are very loving parents that had to stomach some ludicrous stuff as a result of our, as Jeff puts it, thrill seeking. I mean, I feel terrible, and hopefully I've apologized enough in my words and actions, but at the same time, I'm grateful that we have that document because it's just so neat to see as an adult, to see your parents, to see their actual visceral reaction to these questions about how they feel about you.
Yeah, reliving those times and actually being able to.
There's no question that we had loving parents, which I think some people sometimes wonder about, and I don't.
Did you sit in the theater with them when you, like, during a screening? Have you done that yet?
They haven't seen it yet.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah, we haven't. I mean, like I say, it's so visceral that it's like it's still real, and it's like for that moment alone, I kind of don't need to put them through it, and that's up to them if they want to.
But they do want to see it. I don't know if they would rather see it like in the comfort of their living room or like at a small matinee somewhere. Small theater. I don't know. They want to see it. They just haven't.
But that's up to them. I mean, like, as in that same interview, I think that the scene ends with our mom, Janet McDonald, saying, "I'm proud of my boys, period." And it's sort of like, okay, I'm good then. You don't need to see this for me. It's an absolute. And as far as like if it would be an emotional experience for them, I'm protective of them. That's up to them if they want to experience it. I think they probably would enjoy it, but even give them the free, if you need to fast forward that part, go ahead,
But also affecting Jeff at the time. Do you feel like you lived with scars throughout your life from it, or is it like
I don't feel like I lived through I don't have scars from it, but it was a very big event in my growing up years. The various emotions and the various, just like the shakeup of the family, the not knowing if Stephen was safe, and all of this stuff all happening at once in one big avalanche. It was like watching something that, every time I watched like the local news and something horrible happens to a family, I automatically kind of tap in, because there were days when I felt that I was having that experience as well, that we were having that experience. But scars, no, it was just an experience, like a really heavy experience.
Yeah.
But, okay, so did Steven end up on a milk carton any chance? Like,
Yeah.
have you seen this? I remember those things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's safe now, so we can joke about it. But yeah.
That's the ultimate. Yeah, it's the ultimate Red Cross collectible. Do you have the milk carton?
We should make them. We should make them milk carton popcorn boxes for the movie.
Oh. Yeah, like the
idea.
Dune popcorn box. Yeah.
It'll be like the Doom tie-in popcorn box.
Ellie, you talk about in the book about not knowing how many people are going to actually respond to these collectible items.
We're probably talking about like the Neurotica starter kit or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like a sort of a fan club incantation that we offered on the
Out of our
back.
hands. We put our address on it, and we offered it, but after we made a few of these Neurotica starter kits, we all of a sudden were overwhelmed, and we just stopped sending them out.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I think the full name was the Flaming Neurotica Starter Kit.
What it was is, we gave a lot of materials, and it was all meant to burn in an incantation. We wrote a long poem, and we had photos of Linda Blair, Jim Dandy, all these people we admired. And then we had a ritual where you take the Neurotica album and you light it on fire and recite the poem. So, of course, I don't know anyone who's ever actually performed the Red Cross flaming ritual, but that was part of the instruction.
But it was still merely a suggestion. And
This is completely different than the Kiss Army. This was a little more intense.
Smart marketing, too, because if we would have had the backup team to actually facilitate this stuff, people could have been burning their records and then buying a second copy.
well, it was an obvious, I mean,
Oh.
it's transparent, it's an obvious ploy to try to sell more records. So. Probably encouraging people to just audio tape it themselves before they burn the record.
Right. I don't even have a copy of that long incantation, but we wrote it as a group. I remember the four of us, Roy, Robert, you and me. We wrote it, and it was really long. It was heavily, I think someone had like an old copy of Necronomicon that was just kind of floating around, a paperback. So we kind of did our own like kind of Brady Bunch version of Necronomicon.
I'd also add maybe a little bit of Yoko Ono grapefruit was an influence for that as well.
Yeah, of course. Are the kids into the clothes? Have you ever like, oh, this will fit you, Astrid. You should try this on.
Yeah. There was, I've given her some of the stuff, some stuff she's worn. It's like trying your old uniform on from school to see if it fits. I try on some of my old stage clothes, see if I can fit it. But I doubt I'll fit into them. I'm very tall, so everything I ever bought was, I found. It was found in like thrift stores or weird clothing stores. But I always had to wear clothes that were too small, just because I'm 6'6" and it's just impossible. So anything I had, all my pants were floods, and they're always very tight in the waist. So like if you figure that was me in like my early 20s and my late teens. Now I've managed to keep my slim figure, but not that slim. No way. There's no way.
Well,
I can't.
You can always have the tailor sew a little bit of elastic into the waistband.
Right. Well, okay. Maybe when we do like the Neurotica album in its entirety, I'll wear the actual costume.
Wait, is that something that's going to happen? Is that something you guys want to do?
No.
Okay.
I mean, those are the kind of things. If someone gives you an offer you can't refuse, then you consider it.
Yeah.
But besides that, anytime you make an album, on all of the records, some songs so great on the record that you can, and then you can't ever really get a good live arrangement for them, just never feel right, Or then there's songs that you just kind of that much of, and then it's just amazing live. So,
Yeah.
so to do an entire album, which would mean you have to accept the songs that you don't feel you're pulling off live. So it would be a nightmare. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't want to do Neurotica, but I would do it.
Yeah, just reading the book that you thought Born Innocent was your best sounding record, and you were disappointed by the sound of Neurotica.
Well, no, comparing those two records, Born Innocent sounds exactly like the way we sounded if you were in the room with us. That's identical to the way we sounded. Neurotica sounds nothing like we sounded live. I mean, as far as sonically speaking, the arrangements are the same, but sonically it doesn't sound anything like the way we would sound if you would have seen us in 1987.
You also had some surprising people that you wanted to produce Neurotica. There was Sonny Bono.
Sonny Bono was the first choice. Yeah.
The first choice, because of his association with Phil Spector.
I was a big fan of the early Cher solo records and the early Sonny and Cher records, because being from Los Angeles and being Phil was like, Sonny was a disciple of Phil Spector. The Cher solo records sounded like Phil Spector meets the Byrds, because the Byrds were the other happening act in the mid-'60s. So I just thought it was a great combination, a great hybrid. And maybe that we could add a new element to it. It would have been amazing, Sonny Bono.
Were you down with that, Stephen? When he said Sonny Bono, were you like, yes, for sure, I'm 100%
Yeah, I don't think I understood it on the level that Jeff was thinking. I mean, I think now the way it would have been amazing, and the way Jeff just described it right now. And I think in 1986, when we were looking for a producer for Neurotica, I think had Sonny Bono with the same sort of mindset he had in 1966, had he done that, I think what he would have been doing is he would have been trying to figure out how to make us sound like what was popular in 1986, which would have been a disaster. And I think that would have been key is if he was open to it, we would have said, okay, you know how you were going for sort of Phil Spector meets the Byrds, because those were the popular moments. I would have said, resist the temptation to update that and just do it like it's 1966. That would have been the ultimate prompt, and that I don't think we would have been known how to like articulate then.
No, but you know what would have been cool? Like, okay, so if he took that full approach, that like how he made the All I Really Want to Do album by Cher in 1966, same approach. The funny thing would be, we wouldn't even be playing on the album.
Yeah, that's right.
we would have sang them, and I would have been totally down. All those original Wrecking Crew people were still around.
Yeah.
So it would have been amazing to have Hal Blaine play the drums and just have someone just just do all the musical work for us. That would have been a high concept that I would have stood behind totally.
Well, okay, sure. I think I would have broke my brain a little bit trying to wrap my head around
well,
that.
I wouldn't have broke my brain. I would have been so down for that, but you probably could have played. Roger McGuinn played on the first Byrds album, whereas the rest of the band didn't, the Wrecking Crew, but Roger McGuinn played on. So you could have maybe been the featured bass.
Maybe.
Yeah, you would have had karaoke would have played. We would have had Glenn Campbell playing your stuff. Glenn Campbell would have been amazing. You guys are on tour, and when you come back from tour, the album's done.
That's one thing I would like to do. I thought about it because I think of conceptual. What's the next conceptual record? I would love to make a record where all the instruments are played by studio musicians. I would love that.
That's a slippery slope right there.
No. You conduct and be involved in the production, but not put on a guitar. No one in the band, no one who's in the touring act plays on the record. Just people that you admire their abilities, and then you just drive them.
So Redd Kross goes
admire their abilities.
Redd Kross goes to Nashville, and you just you get the studio musicians, and you.
Those guys.
Those are the best of the best.
They play so clean.
Yeah.
We'd be ready for the Stagecoach Festival after that.
Why not? Isn't Creed playing in the festival? They're playing Stagecoach. You guys should play.
Yeah, Creed is playing. And someone else is. Lana Del Rey is playing an opening slot.
Lana Del Rey.
How did she headline Coachella? Now she's down the bill on Stagecoach. She's doing a country set, I wonder. She's probably doing a Loretta Lynn tribute.
Could be. Oh, that'd be awesome. I'd love to.
It would be great.
I would love to see that. Yeah.
One producer choice that we talked about, I don't know if it was Veronica, I think it was for Third Eye maybe, but we talked to Howard Kalin and Mark Volman of the Turtles.
Oh, yeah.
And that also harkens back to that same era, that Sonny Bono era. But the Turtles, they were young and they were recording in all the same studios as the Wrecking Crew, but they actually made the cut and they were always playing on their own records. So that actually probably would have been like a happy compromise had we made that work with those guys, because they would have let us play on our own record. Yet they would have brought that Gold Star Studios spirit to the record that we seem to have been courting at the time. I don't know why they didn't work out with what they also known as Flo and Eddie.
Yeah.
They were a little, I mean, I didn't think personality-wise we were gonna gel.
But I love them.
I love them. Oh yeah, I mean, like Howard Kalin and Mark Von, they are like, I love them, and they were really nice and funny, but it just seemed like I don't know how this is gonna work.
Did like Bob Ezrin ever come up? Like, okay, we need to get this guy. What do we need to do? No?
Probably. Well, really? Well, I mean, I'd imagine that I would have thrown that out there, but I think it was never actually a possibility.
I think the only record that we would consider that kind of person would have been for the Third Eye album. And I don't really know what condition Bob Ezrin was in like 1989. You know, he had a couple of years where he fell off. So who knows? Who knows? We've never really allowed a producer to really produce us that much anyways. And I just kind of think it would be really fun to have someone who's a very, very commercial, someone in a different genre, like some commercial producer, like Keith Urban. What would our album be like if Keith Urban produced it?
Debbie Gibson, we seriously considered having her produce the song Bubblegum Factory.
Oh, man.
We were going, but it just, that didn't happen. But we at least got into talks. We went into talks on that one. We talked to her on the phone.
All of these could have been.
That question of like, could have been, should have been, or whatever. It's like, I just noticed someone on my feed yesterday, the cover of Ace Frehley's memoir, the title of it, which is, I like to deliver it in a drunken tone, No Regrets. Which I think is absurd, Now he has no regrets. You've got no regrets, Ace Frehley. None whatsoever. Okay. Yeah. And, and I think that's, to me, I see that as kind of like an inability to, take stock, honestly, of things.
Well, no, you can always take stock and have total acceptance. I don't know that was Ace's thing. I don't know where he was coming from. But
I haven't read the book, so I shouldn't really pass judgment.
Oh, yeah, wasn't it? You mentioned that at your show that you were listening to the audiobook of Paul Stanley's memoir.
Yeah. And I think between Stephen and myself, we've both listened to it several times. But I mean, it has become a thing where people go to YouTube and listen to chapters to fall asleep. It's very soothing. ASMR or AMSR?
Yeah. ASMR.
ASMR. It's like very good ASMR. And we had the opportunity. Our road manager, our sound man, had never heard the Kiss Alive, never went through a Kiss phase. So it was really fun listening to that with someone who was learning all this information for the first time and really enjoying it. It was a thrill.
Paul reads it himself, and it's very listenable, I think.
Yeah, it's great. It's really good. I recommend if you want to listen to something at night while you're going to sleep to relax, just find it on YouTube.
I am shocked about that because all I hear is his stage patter, and I can't imagine listening to that. Like, that's what I imagine his voice is like all the time.
How you doing, people? We are here tonight to thank you and kick some ass. I'll tell you something really cool. Tonight is Saturday night. What do you say we have a rock and roll party?
He does an imitation of himself on the record.
Oh, nice.
And he talks about how he came up with he goes, somewhere between Steve Marriott from Humble Pie and a Southern Baptist minister. And he kind of did it in a voice that was nothing like his actual voice. So he did a really poor imitation of himself.
Right, because he kind of reframes it. We're talking about his banter in between the songs.
Yeah.
And,
famous banter.
And he kind of reframes it into this, like, rather than it just being like a rock star, rallying a crowd, he talks it more like he was some kind of like Baptist preacher, a holy roller of sorts that was
mixed with a rock and roll god like Steve Marriott.
Yeah, and that he was on this crusade, this rock and roll crusade. I mean, I get it. I mean, I tend to fall into that trap.
Oh yeah, the Paul Stanley. There's always
Sure.
Paul Stanley is always in everything we do to at least a tiny extent.
That's
Always.
That's why I fell in love with you initially. Like, oh my God, I recognize this.
It's weird. It's like it's an extreme temptation to fall into it because, like, even when you're playing in front of like, a modern audience of our ilk, it's like if you walk up to the microphone and you say, "How you doing tonight?" You'll get like a yeah. But if you go, "How you doing tonight?" You're gonna
everyone back.
And so it's really tempting to get into that, as Paul Stanley would put it, holy roller mentality. I think that somehow we think that we're in on it, so it's okay or something. But
do you get the joke?
No,
If you're new
fun,
to it,
yeah.
Oh, it was, and that's initially why I saw you. You opened up for the Bengals at the Whiskey. It was 86, 87 or something. Like, okay, who are these guys? And you came on and you gave that Kiss energy, but it was like, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for my whole life. I love this energy. They're fun, they're hysterical. They're doing all the great moves, and these songs kick ass. And like the first show, I became like, okay, I'm going to love these guys forever and ever. So thank you.
I'm not kidding.
That was the goal. It was super nice meeting you guys. It was fun.
Thank you. That was so. Oh my God. Yeah. What a thrill. Thank you so much. Okay. How do you think that went?
That was awesome. How about you, Dave? Did you get everything you wanted to know from the McDonald brothers?
I had so many more things I wanted to ask them, but of course, you kind of have to let these people go after a while. Well, we had a lot of questions because they have a lot of material to cover. This book, this movie, this album. I wanted to talk about the moms and the daughters and the sons and it was great, a lot of fun. I enjoyed it tremendously. I hope to see them in person again one day. So thank you so much to Jeff and Steve for their time. It was really wonderful. I had a great time talking to them. And who made this possible, Holly?
Thank you to Natalie Stamatopoulos, their publicist, and to Omnibus Press. And thank you to Pan Pan Podcast, as always.
Thank you to social media. Where can they find us?
Thank you, social media, for helping to get the word out. And you can find us on YouTube at What Difference Does It Make Podcast, and on other social media at WDDIM Podcast, where you will find lots of outtakes from this chat with Jeff and Steve.
Yes. If you're listening to What Difference Does It Make for the first time, hi, welcome aboard. We have new episodes every Friday, so you should subscribe. You can also find us on our website, wddimpodcast.com, which stands for What Difference Does It Make Podcast.com. You can sign up for our newsletter there. We put it out once a month, so no big deal. It's you can do it. Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Yeah, that's right. We need our rock and roll voice to get everyone involved. Come on, everybody, clap your hands. Let's go. Go.
Subscribe.
All right. We're trying our best here. We don't have that. We need that rock and roll attitude. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. So thanks again to the McDonald brothers. That was just tremendous. I guess we can wrap it up now, right?
And thank you, Dave.
Oh, thanks, Holly. Thank you. Let's wrap this up. Until next week, this is Dave.
This is Holly.
Check you later.
Over and out.
No regrets.